I love the look of mixed media pages with watercolors, stamping, sewing and such. I would love to add some of these techniques to my pages, but I don't want to change my style completely and I don't know where to start. Glitter Girl, can you help?
Of course I can. Today I'm going to start with a very simple layered layout that is going to form a base for that mixed media layer to go on top. So this page is not going to have all the bells and whistles of lots and lots of different mixed media, but then it's going to create something that will work alongside that. So I'm going to put this part together rather quickly. I'm using a kit from Studio Calico that came out last year sometime. I want to say last summer. That has been sitting on my shelf for a little too long. And it's circus themed. And I haven't been to the circus, which is why it's been sitting there, because I've done that very simple thing of looking at it and going, I don't know that I have anything that goes with that. I'll just leave it be for now. And then several times I thought about using it with some sort of story theme, as in a storybook. But the more I looked at it, I'm not somebody that we don't go to the circus. The circus comes once a year and we tend to miss it. But there's a carousel in this pattern. And this photo, although you can't tell from this individual photo, was taken on the carousel. But the interactive, or not interactive, perhaps, well, mixed media, more playful page that's going to go on top of this will make it obvious that this photo was taken on a carousel. So I'm going to try my best to just kind of draw attention to the carousels rather than a circus theme. That's what I'm going with. I'm going to create a bunch of paper layers here from scraps, and I want to bring in lots of blue. These photos were taken on the 4th of July, which is not exactly a holiday here, but as I throw my adhesive on the floor, but it is still, having been a holiday in my childhood, of course, it is, it's a day that I try to do, if I can, I try to do something fun. I would not say that I celebrate it in the fashion that I did growing up in the States by any means, but we try to get out and do something interesting. So we went to a theme park and we rode the carousel amongst other things. So I'm going to try to bring a little bit of that 4th of July feel by having lots of blues in the papers. That pattern is pink, but pink with this more saturated version is almost a red, and there's this big shot of red in the photo. So I think that will make it feel a little red, white, and bluish, even though it's not going to have stars and stripes. Well, I think it's going to have stars. It's not going to have stripes. It's not going to be a big American flag, because that's not exactly what we did. But there we go. I hope that all makes sense. Other little things I want to put in these layers. A little bit of gray. Now, I said that these papers, that carousel paper is from a Studio Calico kit. But a lot of these are scraps that have just come from my scrap bin. So this one was Studio Calico. There's also True Stories. There's October Afternoon. Amy's Better Together. This one's Bella Boulevard. And I think I'm going to manage to get a little bit of wood grain in there. That's old Campy Trails, my favorite wood grain. Okay, and I have some 4x4 cards. These are from Better Together that I want to put on top of all that. Looking at it all together, I think it might be better without this gray and white. Let me take that out and see what I think. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do some edges here with a bit of brown ink, and to be honest, I also think it would have looked nice with navy, but I have the brown on my desk. Should I have stopped and taken more time to set up a navy inker? I don't know. I haven't been using navy lately, but maybe as I work on this page, it will make me think that I want to go do that. And then I could going forward. We'll see. Okay, then all these papers to layer. I'm just going to work these with little angles like that. I wanted to make sure this carousel and this carousel are showing. Everything just a little bit offset so that I don't ever have two pieces that are right in a row together. There I've got a horizontal line to give me a bit of grounding across the middle of all the layers. Photo's going to go toward this side. These two boxes toward that side. And maybe I just have room for remember rather than remember this. And that's okay. Right. Yep, okay, so bunch of paper layers there. Now I want to go ahead and add in my journaling before I do the rest so that I make sure it's going to fit here, and then I've got some space top and bottom to embellish. Using two journaling boxes and two different colored pens lets me have two different aspects of the storytelling here. So this one is just a quick summary of what we were doing and when, and then in this one I have little quotes from different phrases, words that he said during the day, with a little note underneath about which one each was in regard to. So just the two cards next to each other, but I like that there's a big contrast here so that you're not trying to read from here all the way across. You can tell this is one column and this is another. Now, I was looking at this and feeling like I wanted this blue to continue down here a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do here. Just to bring that light blue back down to the bottom of the page. I need to get it behind the blue polka dot here so that it matches up with that edge there. Okay, that'll work. Okay, now, do I want another title on this page? I think I might not, actually, because it's going to be this big piece on top, and I have kind of subtitles here. I have this text showing here. I think it's going to be enough with all the other text too. And I did have this pattern that I want to bring in a little bit, which actually has the word carousel, and I want to use just a little bit of it because there's going to be more of it on that layer that's going to go above this page. I don't want to cover up any of my carousels. I just want, well, in fact, if I cover this one up, because this isn't a good place to have some embellishment, I would have 1, 2, 3 uncovered. So that's probably okay. I think what I will do is bring this down so that the word carousel is a little bit closer to the bottom of the strip. And I'll tuck this under here. And I'm going to basically replace the drawing of the carousel with the printed word carousel. And then I think this area of embellishment is going to need a little bit of the dark blue. So why don't I just cut a little strip with some little pennant edges so that I can use it to bring the color and the pattern from the top of the page down to the bottom. I think it needs to go below, but not necessarily underneath. I'm not hugely convinced. That might be something to leave off, actually. Okay, why don't I try something else? Okay, instead of looking at the pattern papers, why don't I look at the other embellishments I have here? These are from that circus-themed Studio Calico kit. And I did say I thought I would go with some stars. Well, which color blue should I try? Do I want to try the more grayish blue? The navy is not a good match to all the different navies that I have there. I think the medium blue is going to be my best bet because it doesn't try to match with the others. And if I can frame the end of that word carousel by putting the E and the L in between the points of the stars, so I get that little corner, and then use the smaller stars on this side of the word, I should get my blue back in line with where I want it to be, so that it draws your eye down here to the bottom corner. And now, instead of trying to read all of those words, hopefully it draws your attention to that word in the middle that I wanted to highlight. I do want to then bring those stars up to a higher point on the layout. So why don't I work it about here from the edge of the photo. And that one I just knocked the adhesive off. Whoops. I have 3 down here and 3 up here. How many do I have left in that color? I have 2. So maybe I will keep those to have on the page that's going to go on the top. And I think what I need now is just a little bit of red. Now I have one big piece of red here. So if I were to add 2 embellishments that have red, that could give me a triangle because the red in the photo counts, as it were. It doesn't have to be 3 pieces of embellishment. It can be 2 embellishments and something in the photo, or 2 photos and something in the embellishment. You're just looking for use of color. It doesn't have to be all the same product. In order to get a little bit more height on this diagonal, I am going to repeat that idea of using the text paper, but drawing the eye to where it says carousel. This time I'm going to do it by just running it right above there, and in fact I'm going to bring it over a tiny bit so that this blue is not ending at the same place. And then I'm going to tuck some red up here. Now, I'm sorry if this is going to scare you. I would rather, the text doesn't really work for the layout, and I'd rather be able to use the little red ticket in 2 different places. So, I will have one layer there. And one in this corner where you can tell I obviously did not think I was going to be adding anything. But I am. I'm just deciding, do I want this closer to the red here, or do I want it closer to his face here? And I think face is going to win. Put this one. So that now does mean that I have 3 bits of red embellishment plus the red here. That's okay too. But everything here now, my reds go on a diagonal rather than a triangle. I mean, this one jumps up a little bit, but there's also a tiny bit there. So basically a loose diagonal line. And I was wondering if I might put a little bit more of this brown wood grain in with a few more little stars, I think, up here and down here, just to bring that neutral to pull it all together. When I said that, I was thinking the actual pattern paper, but I changed my mind. I have plenty of these little wood grain or wood veneer stars. So I'm going to do the edges of the kind of loose scattered line of embellishments to make them blend in and feel like they're part of the layout. I then want to bring some in so that they are closer to the photo than the blue one, so it's not just blue and then brown. I want there to be a little bit of a mix. Sure about that one. Maybe it needs to be out here a little bit more. Yep. Of course, if this pattern paper here where it's lifted up is bothering you, and on these bottom edges, if that sort of look makes your shoulders hunch up a little bit, then just know that about your own pages and make sure that you glue them down. But I actually quite like how you end up with a little bit of a stack in the layers that way. So I tend to not go back and adhere them down. As long as it's secure when I pick up the page, it's not falling off. So that's okay. Alright. A little bit of gold for just the top and bottom corner. And that's this layer done. Then the next piece is to build on top of this, but it will be an actual individual page of its own. I'm going to use 2 photos that have been printed as 3x4s on a 4x6, so it's the same size here. But my original thought was that I wanted to include these on the same page, but these are the photos that my friend took from further away, and you can see, if you can tell what this is me taking a picture of him. That is this photo that I was taking here. So instead of putting them together, because the look of the photos is so different, what I wanted to do was to have a sort of before and after or behind the scenes kind of look on a transparency. And I could, this is a 12 by 12 page overlay, so it's actually bigger than 12 by 12. It's the same size as a page protector, and it's already punched. It comes in a set of 2. So there's one that says adventure, one that says tell me a story. I was going to use this adventure one. And you can just put it straight in the album, and you can add things right on top. So I could do it like that, but then I would lose the wording. So what I'm going to do is cut the transparency down a little bit, and I'm going to make something that's going to go in a page protector. And it's going to move the word adventure over to the side so that I have room for the photo. And this part will be clear. There's going to be a little bit of paper here to coordinate. And then when you pick it up, then you'll be able to see the photo underneath. So you'll get this 2 different viewpoints. So here's taking the picture, that's kind of the behind the scenes, and this is the photo itself. Here's that page overlay cut down to 12 inches tall and 9 inches wide, so that I have this 3-inch gap over here that I'm going to cover with white cardstock. which is actually a 12 by 3¼ inch strip, so that I'll have a little bit of overlap here to sew it together. There you go. So this is essentially my seam allowance, and I'm going to stitch that piece together once this piece is all finished. So this little bit of white cardstock is where I'm going to use ink and paint to create a little bit of a mixed media piece that I'm going to then add in that small format, so that if it is something that is very different from the style of your pages, it doesn't need to be this huge departure of a whole 12 by 12. You can use it in just a small strip. It also means that you don't feel like you're using huge amounts of your supplies on something that may or may not be to your liking. It may or may not work. You may feel like you need a few more tries. I find it much less intimidating to work on something like this that might be a scrap or a piece cut away from the full 12 by 12 rather than the great big sheet. Starting with some watercolor, plenty of water and a bit of blue that I've just mixed together until I got something that was relatively in line with this bit of blue chipboard. And I'm going to do this just a little bit of splattering of blue pretty much across the whole height, just to have a start, because then it's a little less intimidating to think, that first brush onto the paper, because now it's there. What's done is done. And from here I can add bits and pieces and then cover it up if I don't like it, so it's a bit less frightening. So I wanted to kind of mimic this idea of the lettering, but I don't have room in this brush to do something like carousel. I need to stop knocking that little star, but I could do a smaller word like fun. And photo is going to be about here, so I could put one up here as well. If you've tried watercolor brush lettering and you're not happy with what happened, I will say that just trying lots of different things will help it'll help you gain some confidence. Different papers work differently. So this is basil white and it acts differently than watercolor paper, and it acts differently than a flat paper with no texture. And there's not one, I think this is what took me the longest to figure out. There's not one that's right. They're all just different, and they have different little things that they will do. So use those little things to your advantage, and try different brushes, different amounts of water, and you'll be surprised at what happens. And don't feel like you have to write massive words or every letter of the alphabet straight away. There are still a few letters that I don't love enough in my handwriting to use in a title if I can avoid it. I will try and think of a different word to write if it has a letter that I feel a little bit awkward about, if I just don't think it's going to look visually beautiful. And that's absolutely fine. In my book, you are in charge, you can do that. So don't get too worried about it. Okay, I also want to add some of the gold. And some stamping. So I have somewhere here a little stamp set from that circus kit. There are so many times that I reach straight for just black dye ink with stamps like this, partly because it's really simple, but partly I think because you know what you're going to get. It's going to look like the little preview image that's on the stamp. I don't have to imagine in my head what it's going to look like in another color with a different technique or anything like that. But it does mean that I tend to reach for something that's quite harsh and might actually not be the most flattering thing for the layout. So if I'm looking at this page that is going to be underneath, the only thing that's black is that little bit of text on the blue pattern paper. My inking around the edges is brown, my accents are blue, my writing's in brown and white. So it's not, if I were to stamp this in black, it's going to feel very heavy against everything else that's already there. So I just need to stop and remind myself to get a little bit more creative with different things like ink sometimes. So this time I'm going to use the Hero Arts Ombre ink. And the thing is that this is no more difficult than using the black ink pad, with the exception that the black ink pad lives on my desk and this one does not. And I had to go open a drawer to get this. That's all I had to do. But sometimes I just don't think creatively enough with my stamps. I think that's how I'll describe it. So if there is ink that you have and you don't use that would actually be a better color, then try it. Don't feel like you have to always reach for something that's very simple. And you may find that what you were discounting as not simple is not exactly difficult at all. Little text pieces I can add as well. So I'm doing these in little groups. So I started with those two watercolored words and my photo is going to be here in the middle. So I'm just building out, and you can do that with all sorts of mixed media techniques. So whatever it is that you want to use, you can find, look, I'm going to get 2 ink pads out. So now I have some blue to do these stars. Yeah, you can just find 1 or 2 places and then just keep building until things go off the edge or until they run into something else. Okay, so now I think I need to get my photo and that bit of coordinating paper that I wanted to use and get them onto this strip before I lose my place. Now I'm going to need to sew this one down before I put the photo on top, because I don't really want to sew right through the middle of the picture. But I can use it like this to just get an idea of where everything is going to go. So this is going to go here, and it's going to have that text paper here behind it. Okay, I think at this point I will go ahead and sew right down this line. I'm just looking. I think what I'm going to do is add ink to this edge. I wasn't sure, so I wanted to make sure that I did the little splatters of ink and the stamps and everything before I did that, because it would be easier to see, but I think it will balance better with the background, and I'm going to use a box of this and put brown ink around that as well. Okay, so now I'm ready to stitch the transparency to the pattern paper, or the cardstock. It's not pattern paper, it's cardstock. No big trick to sewing this other than go slowly and don't rush. Just keep a nice even pace. I didn't get it perfectly straight, but I was concentrating on getting this zigzag so that it would be partially on the white and partially on the transparency, which doesn't serve any purpose in the stability. It would have been fine for all of the stitching to go through both layers, but I just liked the look. Now I can go ahead and attach things right over the top. Get these corners squared up so I know where I'm placing things here. And my photo, 2 smaller photos. I've got that carousel word in there one more time. So I want to put this on a little bit of an angle. And now I'm using the little things that I had left over. So I had cut that little bit of blue polka dot, but didn't use it, but it works well here. And I had my 2 stars left over. So they're going to go on here as well. I think because there are only 2, I think this is too far away, so it's better for me to have them in a little grouping, just working this little diagonal line here. And then having a look to see if I want anything else here on the front. I do need to look at the back of a layout like this because it's going to show. So I could paint more on the back, but as you can see, using watercolor does mean that a little bit comes through in the texture and the color. So instead, I'm going to cut a strip of pattern paper here, and I'm going to put a journaling box here, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to add any more embellishment. But what I want to do is just work on the back of the page and cover the space that I don't want to show through. I don't want to see the back and the adhesive or the bit where the watercolors come through. But I want to be conscious that I'm not going to add anything that goes outside of this that then gives me that problem on the front. Does that make sense? So I just need a strip of paper here, and I'm not going to sew it on this side. I'm just going to glue it down, and a journaling box to go here. Okay, so pretty easy pattern paper to cover the back, and we're just going to wrap those threads around to catch them here. I don't mind if the edge of this shows as a layer. That's absolutely fine. So it's just the glue that doesn't look very nice coming through. So bring in the scraps of the paper that I used on the other side, because this is going to end up being next to it, so that will work well. I want to make sure that little bit of glue doesn't show, but I also want to bring in one more little spot where it says carousel, so that will all fit. And did I say I wasn't going to do any embellishment here? I might have fibbed. I'm going to do just a tiny bit of embellishment just to make it work with everything else and feel like the 1, 2, 3 as you turn the pages, like they all go together. So I've got a little ampersand there in navy, and then some more of the wood veneer stars. But I'm going to keep them on the paper bit here rather than on the transparency, so they don't show through to the other side. And remember, I'm not using this as a page overlay, I'm putting it in a page protector, so I don't have to worry like I would if I needed to make something really, really sturdy on the outside, where it wouldn't be protected. This is going to go into a page protector without any trouble. Now, normally I do my journaling here in front of you, but here I'm going to write everybody's names and ages and things like that, so I'm going to leave that one there, because we went with a big group of friends. So record everybody there. Okay, so simple little bit of mixed media just to make a nice start. I think if it's something that you want to try, use a few supplies that you have on hand. Don't feel like you have to buy loads and loads of things, and use them in small pieces like this where you can work with the style that you know. So if you are translating this to your own style and your own style doesn't look like mine, keep in mind that you start this page with a page that is in your style. Then try a transparency or a simple overlay of some sort. If you don't want a page that's clear, you could try a smaller page protector and have, you could have a 6 by 12 over a 12 by 12, so that you still had that idea of looking through, and then try just a little part of the page using simple mixed media techniques to get started. From here, there is a world of mixed media that you can explore, but this gives you somewhere to make a start and find out if it's something that your hands enjoy and your heart, your creative heart enjoys. So when it goes into the album, 2 page protectors. This one will go into its own page protector now, and we'll turn there and reveal this one. So we'll have, hopefully it will be clear as you turn the pages that that's me taking the picture that ends up there. I might need to make a little note of that in the journaling box. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you soon. By the way, you can chat with us on Facebook. If you look up the Scrapbook Like a Superhero group, we have quite the little community sharing pages and answering questions and things like that there. And also, if you need a little bit more kick to keep creating through this season, as always, we have a Monday weekly challenge every week, and you can find some inspiration on Shimelle.com to see what page you might make next. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.